We're ready.
Hey, somebody from the committee, I've had a lot of questions about their sheets that they fill out and where they need to turn them in. And after this presentation, the same table where they picked them up, is that where they need to leave them? Yes. Everybody get that? All right. Okay, this is gonna be a good one. Dealing with impossible games and difficult claims. We don't have any other than that. We just don't. Presentation by Sean Cole, an attorney from Montgomery. That's all she wanted me to say.
Y'all do not need to hear all that, but you can talk
It's
about where.
Judge Sean. So, and then her panel partner is Mr. Larry King. And I'm always nice to you, aren't I, Larry?
How that was to be taken. Was it a?
Larry was born and raised in Leesburg, Florida, near where the swamp sits between the orange grove and the cow pasture. He graduated from Florida State University, a BA in English Business Administration after being admitted on a National Merit Scholarship, and from the Cumberland School of Law at Samford University, JD. I never knew that you were a defense attorney.
I was.
Really? So, and now practices law in the state of Alabama. And if we're gonna get going here with our last presentation, and I believe after this is over, we need to stay, and we'll be having closing remarks and prizes.
All right, well, we're going to get started. So when they ask us to talk about difficult claims, I thought I would bring Larry. I think it's always good to hear from a plaintiff and a defense lawyer if we're talking, especially one that probably has sued most of your insureds, if I had to guess. And we'll go through what is a difficult claim, but our objectives really are to identify various examples and types of difficult claims, because you may think of just catastrophic injuries, but there's so many more things that make claims difficult. Address ways to alleviate those problems where it's possible, and identify just avoidable things that may be unnecessary, and then have time for questions. So we're sitting here, we can walk around, we can get Davita to walk around with the mic. If anybody wants to interrupt us, if you want to just come up and punch Larry, that's fine. He's a tough guy. He can handle it. But we're going to make it kind of interactive if you want to talk. Don't feel like you can't interrupt us.
Why is that guy locking the doors?
There's a plan.
Yeah.
There's a plan. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. So how do you define difficult claims? That's one of the things that we started out with when we were trying to prepare for this. And really, do you look at something because it's maybe difficult medically, or because it's hard to vocationally place someone else? Is it a catastrophic claim, something that's difficult to manage? We've all had those cases where someone they may have a severed spine, but they want to go back to work, or they may have lost a limb. There are a lot of different things medically that are just tough to figure out. A personality that's difficult to deal with. We've all had those, whether it's the lawyer, sorry, not you. But whether those claims can be difficult when personalities collide. And sometimes you may realize that you may not be the best person to handle a certain personality. A specific medical condition that may be obscure or weird, or something you've never dealt with. An injured worker with a different language or cultural barriers can make it a difficult claim. Unclear facts can make something difficult when you have 3-4 different stories, or unusual circumstances. So Larry is going to talk about some in particular.
Thanks, Sean. Yeah, one of the things that not really on the handout that I think is something that makes a claim difficult is a lot of our clients are less well educated people. That's, they're in a job in a factory, in a mill or something where they're more likely to get hurt than the job that Sean or I has. And they're there maybe because they're not well educated and they've maxed out what they can do. But for people that are maybe not as sophisticated or as well educated, one thing that really can complicate the claim from our side and equally for you guys' side as well is they don't understand this whole thing called workers' comp. And there's a surprising number of them that think workers' comp is something like Social Security. It's this big thing. Y'all are all workers' comp. There's this big thing like an agency of some kind. They think that. Workers' comp is against me. Workers' comp's doing this. Workers' comp's doing that. And so I sometimes just play to it. So I talked to the lawyer from workers' comp today when I'm talking about Jonathan Berryhill or whoever the lawyer is. They don't know the difference between a case nurse and a claims adjuster. Anybody they talk to is workers' comp told me I had to go to the doctor's appointment. Mm-hmm. Workers' comp won't write my mileage check. Workers' comp's weekly check to me is overdue, that sort of stuff. And that can really complicate it as well. And I wonder sometimes if that gets lost in thinking about what is a difficult claim. Of course, somebody that's quadriplegic, that's a difficult claim. Go ahead, Sean.
No, I was just thinking about this many times when I have a claimant that's pro se and we're trying to explain to them why we're not paying a benefit. Perhaps they were positive drug screen, what have you. And I'll call John Lewis from the Department of Labor and say, will you come to my office and meet with this claimant and explain the process to them? And I go in, I introduce myself, and we lay out, this is the insurance adjuster. She does this. The nurse case manager will be the one to set your appointments. You're not getting a check because you were positive for meth, had the meth pipe, and you killed your co-driver. So I'm sorry, but you're not getting a weekly check. And that's the law, and you can get a lawyer if you want to. But when we educate them from the beginning, it really helps diffuse some of that. They may not like it, if it's that kind of situation. But when they understand, I was talking to someone yesterday and they send out a letter that says, here's how the mileage process works. Here's how this works. Here's how that works. Authorized treating physician. Here are your rights. We don't have to educate them, but y'all, it makes life so much better when people understand the process, and it makes it a lot less difficult. And Davida has something important because she's smart.
So Larry, to what you said, actually, is when adjusters will send a letter or talk to a worker and they'll say, well, your TTD is going to end because you might get TPD, but you're going to be at MMI, then your benefits will stop and then you're going to get PPD. They have.
That's right.
They do.
Right?
They don't know what those things mean.
The minute they get confused, frustrated, lost, mad, they'll call us or call somebody. And I wanted to say too, it's a difficult claim too. It shouldn't be, but it now seems to be evolving more and more into a difficult issue for you guys as well as on my side. And that is where I've got a guy with an orthopedic doctor and the orthopedic doctor says non-surgical, I'm turning you loose and we want a panel. And you guys are finding fewer and fewer doctors that are willing to accept payment by workers' comp. And of those that will, now there's this trend toward, well, let me look at the records first. And then, meanwhile, while all this is going on, and that takes, you guys get us a panel back in maybe a week or 10 days. We get you the selection back in 5 or 6 days. And then we got to send records to the doctor. And 3 weeks later, he still hadn't read the damn things. And my client's blowing me up and I'm saying, hey, what's going on to you guys? Oh, well, we just heard back. He's not going to accept him. We're going to replace him on the panel with a doctor in Pensacola, Florida, when the injury was in Huntsville. And I'm like, no.
We don't do that. He's just embellishing.
No,
don't believe it.
A little bit. But, now all of a sudden, I've been over and picked up a board at work and my back hurts like hell is a difficult claim because of that.
Right.
And I don't know what the solution to that is, but I think you guys would agree that it's becoming a much more prevalent issue. You know, at the end of the day, the law says if y'all aren't providing medical treatment, we can end up picking the doctor. Well, we don't want to do that either. You know, we just
So-
want some good medical care and let's get him treated. And you guys know as well, and we know, and I don't mean this critically, the longer the claim drags out, the higher the ultimate impairment is going to be probably. So that's no good for anybody.
I think one thing that we need to make sure we do during that time frame, we need to make sure that authorized treating physician or a gatekeeper doctor is able to see them for something, because they don't understand a panel and a delay and a doctor's review and all of that. All they see is workers' comp is not getting me medical treatment, right? And they don't understand the process. They probably don't have resources to even do anything. They don't know how to pay their bills. Hopefully they're getting a check still if they're not already at MMI. But if they're at MMI and you've got all these delays, they don't even know if they can go back. They don't feel like they can go back to work. They may get fired in between because they haven't gone back to work, but the doctor released them, but they still have pain. So we really need to communicate better with them, right? Would you say?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. And then there's, you know, I'll tell them, look, if you've got health insurance while we're waiting on the panel issue to sort itself out, then go on your Blue Cross card. But be sure to tell them that you got hurt at work.
Yeah.
You know, because you don't want to go in there and you know, create this thing of telling you got hurt at home or something, because then y'all deny the claim. Well, then they go to the doctor and say, I got hurt at work. And the doctor says, well, that has to be workers' comp. I can't accept Blue Cross. That's insurance fraud. And they're like, well, workers' comp right now is not providing me medical treatment. Can you see me knowing that not right? And they're working on it, but I got to see some. No, I can't see. So the whole thing, I mean, it's just a mess from top to bottom for everybody.
Something else to think about, in most communities, I think you can use the 211 number, and it's like a United Way thing. So if they don't have money for a doctor, they don't have health insurance. In Montgomery, we have medical outreach ministries, and people that are financially unable to go places have those other options. So hopefully they've got those options. But if we are supposed to be providing it, we don't need to let that happen. We need to find that stopgap measure until that panel doctor is in place. But you had a question. You mean the number of doctors? There's never been anything about lowering the number of panel doctors that I've ever seen. They get 4 doctors. If number 4 won't see them, you got to add another one to it. I will say, I've never had to do this very often, but so many groups are merging that there are times that I've said, hey, so-and-so, we only have 3 doctors in this region in Mobile, but we're going to have to head over to Birmingham or Montgomery. Would you like to live with 3 doctors and let us get it in writing? Or in Montgomery, 2 of our groups that merged, I've had people say, I'll take one from what used to be AOC and one from Houston Clinic. They're all Houston Clinic now, but we don't care. I had someone refuse to see a patient and we put someone else from that clinic on, and they didn't refuse. But I've worked that out. Is communication with the lawyer, and if it helps speed it up, it may be something they want to try. Does that sound right? All right, the overworked adjuster, I'm giving that to you too. You ready?
Oh my God.
First of all, I'm going to say I was at a conference in California, and it was all about claims advocacy, and it was all about doing the right thing and treating the injured worker right and getting them the treatment they need and really getting to know that claimant and knowing what those socioeconomic issues are and whatever else. And I raised my hand and I said, if you would quit giving them 10 states and 300 files, they could do that. And so Larry's going to talk about the problems that overworked, sorry for supervisors that get mad, but it's a reality. It just is a reality. So Larry?
Well, yeah, and you know, the supervisors are probably overworked as well. I mean, the claims adjusters may not care so much, but you know, that's one thing we have to watch in my office too. Do we have enough lawyers based on the number of claims that we have? We run a risk of committing legal malpractice and getting bar complaints and lawsuits filed against us if we're not able to keep up. And you guys, if you're not able to keep up, run the risk of what, an outrage lawsuit, or you know, a claim getting out of hand medically, or there's all sorts of bad things on that time on your side of the case as well. You know, ideal, I don't know what's the solution is hire more adjusters so that you don't have to handle 400 claims at one time. But in reality, is that going to happen? You know, probably not. So what is the solution? I don't know. But if you have more time, it follows and it is true that you can develop some rapport better with the claimants. You can call them back more promptly. You can answer their emails more promptly. If you have the time, you can reach out to doctors when that needs to be done more promptly. And the more rapport that you are developing and that the frustrated and in pain claimant sees, okay, you know, I don't have to be best friends with you, but I do see that you're trying to get me better. My checks are coming in on time. You're getting me with some quality medical treatment. I think I'm getting better. You know, ultimately that claim is going to be a lot more easy to resolve than the ones where you're just so overworked you hadn't had time to return phone calls for 10 days. It's not going to end in as good a place. It's going to have an effect on the claimant. He's going to call me. It's going to also have an effect on his healing long term, because if he comes, you know, when he calls me and he said, look, I've been through this, I feel like I've been crapped on every time I turned around. Do you expect that's going to be an easy claim to resolve at that point? No, probably not.
So one thing to think about, you know, first of all, if you're supervisors, advocate for your adjusters if you need more people. And if you're adjusters, advocate for yourself. Explain what you can and can't do. You know, explain your frustrations and say, I'm trying to do this, but I can't get it done. I was talking to one company and they have young people training. This is the only way you're going to find some new adjusters, because there's a tight market out there. And especially with people working remote, it's harder to get people. So if you start someone out helping with certain aspects of your claims and you handle it from beginning to end, you don't pass it off to a med only that maybe didn't have experience yet so that things go crazy in the end. And you train them from the beginning to end, lower wage people that you could afford, and then work them up to giving them a decent salary once they reach the adjuster stage. That's the only way you're probably going to find people. People are not jumping into this right now, and you got to find the right people. Also, when you look at these claimants, many of them, you may have too many and you may be stressed out, but when you're talking to them, you've got to not sound frustrated on those recorded statements. For those that do it, I have heard more recorded statements that are clearly somebody's husband made them mad, or kids made them mad, or traffic was bad, or something happened because the claimant did nothing. It's an initial statement. What's your name? Where do you work? I mean, that is horrible, y'all. And it's going to make your claim worse from the very beginning. It's going to make it difficult. Also, Davida and I were on a panel this summer with some people. And one of the things that the injured worker that was on the panel with us said is that he wished somebody would have known him. And he suggested Zoom. So get to see their faces. Do a Zoom or a FaceTime, or let them know you care. Let them know you're a person and see them as a person instead of looking at them just as a piece of paper. That got some wood. You got to know them or they gonna hate you. They're gonna think you don't like them. No, I'm just kidding. But if you get to know them as a people. When we take depositions, I have had more people tell me that this person was nasty or ugly or whatever, and I meet them in person, whether it's at mediation or at a deposition or whatever, and they really become real people then, sometimes when you lay your eyes on them. So just keep that in mind too. Whether you want to or not, it might help you out. All right. Types of difficult claims, death claims.
You know, by the time you meet them, I've told them, you better calm your behind down, because you're fixing to meet with this lawyer and she better like you.
Oh. Well, that's a good point. I had a case once that the claim was denied because a man was the initial aggressor and he pulled a knife on someone. And so they hit him in the back with a backhoe. And the lawyer said, I want you to meet him. This can't be, I want you to meet him. And he was probably in his late 60s, early 70s. I went over to Bill Abel's office, sat down with this man, and he showed me the knife, and it was a pocket knife this big. And I put it beside the pen and took a picture. He and his wife were there. He was down in a ditch and the backhoe was up here. And he said, "Get off that backhoe. I saw you smoking pot before you came on the job." And he was not pulling a knife and he was not an initial aggressor, but nobody had taken his statement to find out what happened. They just denied the claim. So we realized that needed to be paid and we moved on. But I met him in person and I saw the nice man that he was, and it just made a difference. Okay, so death claims are difficult. Just emotionally, they're difficult. Because you've got to be sensitive, regardless if it's their fault or not, regardless of what happens, it's emotionally taxing. It's sensitive to the employer who may have, cared about them, or the coworkers who were with them. I think it is critical for y'all, the clients that you service, to remind those employers over and over again to be sensitive, regardless of the circumstances. You may have situations where you don't owe those death claims and you don't want to pay something out that you don't know you're going to get the money back, or whatever else, if it's goes your way. But talk to those employers. These folks need to help them out some. If they've been good employees, help them find resources, or get the employer to help them find resources. That part's not your job. But there are a lot of people that they're just poverty stricken in Alabama and they don't have those resources. So someone needs to communicate, this is questionable. And sometimes it may come best from the employer that knows them. So just work together as a team on that. Now
One
Go ahead.
thing
Sorry.
real quick on, it's not a difficult claim. It's an easy claim. That is the 30-year-old guy that's not married and has no kids that's killed at work, and his mom calls. She's not a dependent. Okay, you don't owe anything on that claim. You owe the burial benefits or whatever, but there's not like 500 weeks of whatever because she's not a dependent. We get a lot of calls like that, and I shouldn't say a lot. There's not that many people killed at work, thankfully, but 2 or 3 a year. It'll be the mom that calls or the brother that calls or something like that. And, one of the things that we try to teach our lawyers in our office to do when they're talking with clients is manage expectations from day one.
Mhm.
And that involves the law sucks in this state if you're the injured worker in terms of what you can expect to get. If you're, 99% disabled, you get $220 a week, you get 300 weeks total. That's it. It's not fair. It's not right. It's outdated, obsolete, blah, blah, blah. But we got to do that on the front end because we don't want to get way up in the case and then spring on them. Hey, it's only going to be worth X $1,000. And in these death cases, I don't, listen to what your claims managers and those sorts of people want you to do. But I really don't think there's anything wrong with you guys acknowledging too, in maybe that sort of case, I get it, ma'am, you just lost your son and I cannot believe you're grieving,
Mhm.
but the legislature in this state has seen fit that there's not a remedy for you in this circumstance. And I'm so sorry to tell you that. I wish it were different. Instead of just saying, no, you don't qualify, too bad, whatever. I think there's, room to have some expectation management and compassionate explanation there too, by acknowledging the law isn't fair. There's areas where it's not fair to your side too. I get that.
A lot.
One,
Just say,
but no, but that's
One.
all I have there.
all right. Oh, did I go back? Where am I? Next. There we go. All right. You want to talk about amputations first?
Oh gosh, my favorite topic, amputation. We had, those can be difficult claims. We had a guy here. This case was last year, I think. He was here on an exchange worker program from South Africa to learn farming techniques at a farm in Selma. And somebody from Selma had gone to South Africa to learn their things. And they had all the appropriate visas and work permits and all that. So it wasn't a situation of somebody not here lawfully. But he goes chasing after some piece of equipment, trips, and ends up with his leg cut off. Which is horrible enough. But guess what? He's got a work visa that's fixing to expire. And so, wait a minute, we got to get his prosthesis on here, which let's get the federal government involved now to get that visa extended so he can get the treatment here and get, medically stabilized with it before we ship him back to South Africa. Well, then what's the thing with a prosthetic leg? It's got to be replaced every 4 or 5 years, right? So now I've got a comp carrier whose head is exploding because they don't have a vendor in South Africa that provides prosthetics. And they took the position, well, we just won't pay for it. We only have to pay for medical treatment in the United States of America. And I'm like, well, no, the code of Alabama does not restrict you to only paying for certain area codes or zip codes. It says you shall pay. And we're back and meanwhile, my guy's getting ready to load up on the plane. And he said, well, you know, what am I going to do 5 years from now? What if I get there and I need to have it refitted because just during travel, it's gotten loose? And I'm like, well, you go to the doctor and you send me the bill for it and we'll see. We ended up settling the thing, but you know, that's not all that unusual a thing either. When you've got an amputation, you're going to be looking at a lifetime of replacements and refittings and pressure sores and God knows what. And you throw in an international border into the whole thing. And all of a sudden it's like, you know, I really should have kept my CDL license up to date.
Also important is early intervention with every one of these. Early intervention is so important. They need therapy early. They need everything early. Look at vocational options. Let them start working on it. If somebody's got a CDL, they need to get that waiver to be able to do that. Help them through that process. And the earlier you help with an amputation, the better you can ascertain what they can do. And some people give them like an advocate that's also an amputee that may work with them and to give them hope, because a lot of people lose hope. They get depressed. They don't feel like there's anything they can do. They feel like they can't live their life anymore. So the more that we early intervention, get early intervention with all those aspects, it just makes it better. With brain injuries, again, early intervention and goal setting, you've got to ascertain if it's something that's going to get better, get them the best care possible. One thing that's important too, there was a case that came out. Larry didn't think it was a big deal. Lindsay thought it was a bigger deal. I still think it's a big deal. A case recently, and Jonathan, one of y'all probably remember the title of the case, but someone had a settlement 10 years before with the Department of Labor, and the wife then came back later and said he didn't have the capacity to contract. He had a brain injury. He should have never entered that settlement. And the court said, okay, you're right. Well, now the statute's run. I don't know what they're going to do about that. But if you have a brain injury, make sure they understand what's going on if you settle the case. If there needs to be a guardian ad litem, have that person in place, get the court to approve it, or have a physician that says they are mentally capable of doing whatever. If you're going to do it through an ombudsman, just make sure you have documentation that they know what they're doing. And I'll talk about burns, then you can talk about paralysis. Again, early identification of barriers to certain jobs. We had a guy that was severely burned. We did not even know that he was going to survive in Montgomery, and he ultimately did survive, but he could not work in certain environments because of the heat. You have to know those things, but he did want to do something. So ascertain if we know they're not going to get to go back. Start early, get them all the treatment they need, get that critical care taken care of, and then start planning vocationally for what they can do. And it's going to make that complicated case a lot less complicated. They're going to have more options after that. Next.
One thing on burns that makes that a difficult claim too, if somebody has been severely burned, you know, it's not like an orthopedic thing.
Mm-hmm.
They're probably going to heal up pretty well, but they're going to be very tragically, very permanently scarred a lot of the time. And that it works on people's heads and their brains, understandably so. But, you know, we get somebody, I had a guy one time that was told to go clean out the asphalt machine there that we paved the roads with. It's probably cool enough now and you have to use diesel fuel to clean it. Okay. Well, it didn't kill him, but it just burned up about 90% of his body. And they take him to the burn unit and do skin grafts and debride his skin, you know, every day for about 6 months. And essentially introduced him to all the agony of hell right there at UAB hospital. But on the other side of it, he heals up. All the skin grafts eventually took. He's now fine. He's now scarred up, but he gets a full release to go back to work with no restrictions. He didn't have any heat sensitivity. So what am I going to tell the guy, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you got your 6 weeks or 6 months of workers' comp benefits, but now the doctors have released you and there's nothing physically that prevents you from going back to work. You don't look as pretty as you once did, but you know, that's okay. What do you tell that guy? What does the law have for him after he's experienced a hell the likes of which none of us, God willing, ever will. But your claim's not worth crap. That's a difficult claim for me and for you guys if he doesn't have a lawyer and y'all are dealing with him.
So when I was at this conference, there was a panel of 5 people and 4 were first responders, all that had significant burn injuries. And they went back to different places of serving. They did the same thing. So if they feel valued from the beginning, and if you're helping them ascertain, hey, you matter, let's get you back to your job or let's find you another job, it may be an easier pill to swallow. Maybe.
It can be. And I think in some respects, it's also dependent on what is the mindset of the person going in. Because, I mean, y'all have heard this, nothing new here, but there's kind of 2 types of people when something bad happens, whether it's a financial crisis or a physical injury, whatever. You've got one group of people that are victims of it, and that's going to define them. And then you've got the other class of people that are survivors of it. And they're going to get back up and dust their behind off and get their lunch pail and get back in the game. You know, sometimes in a more catastrophic, not every case needs this, but you spend 3 minutes talking to somebody about you're going to survive this, you're going to get through this. It's not going to feel good for a while, but you're going to be okay. That can go a long way because maybe they don't have a coping safety net of support people that they're hearing it from at home.
True. There's a paralysis on here, and then we'll go to the next slides. But we had a case where a man was paralyzed and his wife, they were going to get a divorce, but they stayed together after this occurred. And it was tragic for her. It was hard for her. And so again, providing community resources, making sure you get the care they need. Those are other things. You know, there's only so much you can do. Make sure they have the right care. Make sure they have someone that takes care of all of those medical needs. And sometimes it's just maintenance. It's just all you can do. Sometimes if you see that they are in a bad home situation, you might have to find someone to be a guardian ad litem and be an advocate for them and get them in a nursing home because they're not getting what they need at home. So
probably a good idea also to find some brief article on understanding the treatment that goes with paralysis.
yeah.
And I say that because, you know, one thing that I learned early in my career, glad I did, was that unskilled home nursing care is not Medicare reimbursable. That means if you send off to get your MSA done, that ain't going to be in there. Well, they need it. So what's going to happen? You guys are going to have to fund that somehow if you want to get out of just, you know, open medical. And I need to know that because I need to advocate that for my client. And just understanding how people that are different from me and Sean and most of us in this room, they have different needs. They face different issues. If they're sitting in a wheelchair all day long, there's a very serious issue about developing pressure sores. If they're diabetic, that can end up causing amputations and death and the whole thing. And, you know, there aren't a lot of claims that involve paraplegia, quadriplegia, that sort of stuff. And it's worthwhile to take 5 or 10 minutes and say, okay, let me learn about what this life of this person is going to require medically going into this, so I don't get shell shock at the end of it when the plaintiff's lawyer says, I want a lifetime annuity for unskilled nursing care as part of this.
Yeah.
So
We've only got 13 minutes, so let's get through these. PTSD, loss of ability to return to one's normal occupation, poverty and chronic pain. Which one do you want to talk about the most?
go.
Poverty, y'all, I've mentioned this before. There's a book, A Framework to Understanding Poverty. We have a lot of poor people in Alabama. We do not communicate the same way. We do not understand the same way. Make sure you understand what they're going through. That's all I got on that. Go ahead.
Loss of ability to return to work. You've been working at the factory 30 years. All of your buddies are there. Your Buffalo Wild Wings buddies are there. Your bowling team's there. Your church buddies are there. Boom, you get hurt. You can't work at the factory anymore. All you know how to do is push the button on that machine, move the part, push the button, go to lunch with your friends and all that. Sorry, you can't do this anymore. Your life for 30 years is over. You have an injury that forbids that. Now you're going to have to go work at a department store and put cat food on the shelves because that's what you can physically do. You know what that does to a 30-year employee's brain? It explodes it.
So it makes it difficult.
It does make it difficult. So, you know, if somebody can't go back to work where they've been going, just recognize their life is fixing to be totally upside down from what they've been used to for a long time. Just give that a thought, before you talk to them. And one quick thing on chronic pain. My goodness, we have this discussion with so many clients so much of the time. Chronic pain, they're mad, they hurt. Y'all all know this too. Chronic pain feeds depression, and depression feeds chronic pain. And there's this vicious circle, and it's real, and it goes on. And I can tell these people on the phone, okay, here's what you need to understand. You got chronic pain, there's 3 ways to treat it: surgery, physical therapy, and drugs. The drugs can be a pill or a shot, but that's all we have. We don't have anything better. And you're going to have to embrace that. If you can't have surgery, physical therapy hadn't helped, and the drugs don't work, you literally are going to have to learn how to suck it up and cope. And you can do that. I can tell them that. You guys probably can't go quite that far.
No,
No,
don't. So I met a lady and I put information about her up here, and I've never dealt with her yet. Bill Pipkin knows her too. She was in a motor vehicle rollover accident, and she says this counseling stuff really works for people. So look at the other options when people are in chronic pain. Look at something that's a long-term potential of getting them back to work, helping, whether it's mindfulness, whether it's yoga, whether it's swimming, whatever. Sometimes people say they want a gym membership for water aerobics or whatever, and we may not have to pay for that. But if we do pay for that for 6 months or a year and just see if it's going to help, it may be that we can make that part of a settlement. Sometimes we do things we don't have to do to get a better outcome in the long run. So think outside the box and don't look at what we do as I have to do this and I don't have to do that. Look at what might be better to uncomplicate that claim a little bit. Do a few things you don't have to do, such as some kind of life coaching to help people get past these mental barriers. The pain is real. Clearly, pain is real. But sometimes, like you said, you got to suck it up and move on. And you may not can do that on your own. They may not need a psychiatrist for that. They may just need somebody to talk to and talk through it.
you need to find a purpose.
Find a purpose.
We tell
That's
a lot
great
of
point.
them, I have made clients promise me you're going to go down to your local Red Cross or Goodwill or church food pantry 1 day a week for 3 hours a day. Promise me that you're going to do that. And I've had so many of them call back and say, I think you saved my life, because I didn't know what to do. I didn't have a purpose. And now I'm contributing
Yeah.
value. Yeah.
All right.
Sorry.
No. Diffusing the situation. I'm not going to say much about this, except when you see an employer doing wrong, just be bold. I know they're your client. I know you are supposed to manage their cases, but you are doing them no favors if you let them keep doing the wrong thing. So
Incorrect. Send them an email and say, immediately fire that claimant.
No, he wants a new lawsuit. That makes it much more difficult for us, much more lucrative for Larry.
I get 50%, not 15 on those cases. So.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Put that in your notes. Okay, next. This is what Larry deals with. You all have to deal with this too. You get the nagging spouse, the angry person, the mouthy, whatever. Sometimes it's because they're stressed out. They don't know what to do. Sometimes they're just jerks. Take it away. What you got?
Yeah, I mean, the difficult spouse. Doesn't everybody love that one? I mean, I'm trying to talk to my guy on the phone about what, and I can't even hear him anymore because the spouse is in the background. Nag, yeah, and tell him this and tell him that. And why has he done this? And when is he going to do that? And they can't treat you this way. And I'm like, dude, look, you got to tell your wife to either shut up or tell her to go get a damn job and get hurt and hire me, and then I'll listen to it. But I ain't listening to it for free. I'm done with that, But yeah, I mean, everything on that slide. Yeah, y'all live through that. That's my day every day too. The nagging spouse. But I know more than you do, client that's done my own research on Google. My uncle that lost the toe and got $1 million settlement. By God, I don't care what MapQuest says, it is 23 miles, not 22, and I want my 54 cents.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it too. Okay.
5 minutes. Okay.
All right.
We got 5 minutes. All right. Things we can't control, lack of provider options, limited options for employment, bad venue. It is what it is. That's that. We're going to move on to the Larry things. You got 2 slides. Do we have copies of these? Can we email people copies of this if they want this? He's got some stuff in here specifically from a doctor and another one from a doctor's deposition that were not good. Carry on.
It's actually a physical therapist. Is it not on this? This is, I just got this in like a week ago or something. Given his failure to attend outpatient physical therapy scheduled meetings and lies to his case manager and his attorney, I have little empathy for his complaints, which I think are exaggerated and unfounded. That's a physical therapist talking, guys. Okay. He's getting a trial subpoena, right?
Next, the deposition.
Yeah, the next one is a doctor where the nurse case manager goes in. And I swear this, I mean, you see it's a deposition. This ended up in a lawsuit. The nurse case manager, this doctor told us, came in here with the low cut thing on and the cleavage thing and the short skirt thing, saying, you know, we can feed you a lot of clients if you'll kind of play ball with us and that sort of stuff. Yeah, that went on.
Okay, y'all, that doctor said that in the deposition. I have never met a nurse that would ever do that because we have amazing workers' comp nurses. So I don't know who it was, but y'all don't let your people do that. That is not good. That would make this case very difficult. All right, next. Okay, lawyers are problems a lot of times. When we deal with lawyers that don't know what they're doing, it makes it so much harder. You have to educate them. You have to say, no, you don't get pain and suffering, what have you. Then you've got those lawyers that are jerks.
Check, please.
But sometimes they're that way because someone's not doing something they think is a no-brainer. But if you communicate with that lawyer and say, look, we didn't know this. So when I get a new lawsuit, the first thing I'll do is call Larry or call Kim Jett and say, hey, is there something I'm missing? Why did you file suit? We're doing everything we're supposed to do. And then they'll give an answer. But there are some lawyers that are just looking to make some money. They'll sometimes not settle a case because they know their fee is higher if they get a PT as opposed to not getting that Social Security offset for their client. And some lawyers just can't control their clients. They have that failure to launch. They won't agree on a reasonable settlement, so it drags out forever because they don't know what they're doing. All right, first things first. Injury occurs, immediate medical attention. Employee is contacted, compassion is shown. Excellent claims handling and care is always done with the people I deal with because they're amazing. The employee is not kept in the dark. Short and long-term goals are set, and then you brainstorm with that employee. This is what makes what could be a horrible case become easier. Larry, anything?
8 things. You got to do them all first. If you don't, they're going to call me.
Well, there you go. All right. Got a few seconds and let's talk about, I'm going to let you do implicit bias and then we'll be.
Yeah, this is a fascinating topic. I actually did a lawyer seminar on it not long ago, and I'm going to race through this very quickly. A lot of medical studies have been done that like a 3-day orthopedic doctor seminar. And on day 1, the doctors are given 30 case histories. Chad Billingsley has low back pain, and here's the history that he gave of that. He's reporting some radiculopathy, and the doctor's challenge is, what is your treatment plan? And then on the last day of the seminar, they're given 30 more case histories, same kind of thing, except number 2 on the first day is the same as number 9 on the last day, except for one thing. The name is changed from Chad Billingsley to Tamika Johnson. And guess what? 99% of the time, the treatment plan is different. Yeah, and that's been proven over and over and over and over again. Does that mean the doctors are racist? No, you can't conclude that from it. But is there implicit bias that hopefully all of us need to be aware of and just think, am I doing right here to everybody? Am I being a love thy neighbor? Everybody's created in God's image type of a person here. Or maybe if I got something working that struck a chord with me, that something, it's real, it exists, it's been proven scientifically. So
And it can occur on both sides. You can have that
Yes.
claimant,
Guilty too.
you can have that claimant that's guilty of the same thing. And so we need to be cautious of that and find ways to work together. And if we feel like maybe we have a barrier to doing what's best for this person, get it to somebody else. Don't feel bad about that. You know, we've gotten other people involved in cases that may have more similar attributes than others to make cases go a little better. So keep that in mind. And think about this too, y'all. I had a plaintiff's lawyer in Montgomery treat her client so poorly because he was dirty and smelly at the settlement hearing because he came from his job. We were going into court and she was so ugly to him. I was humiliated for him. It was horrible. She treated poor people worse than people with money. And we can't do that. It's just not right. Language barriers, make sure you got people that can communicate. Anything
See.
else on that? And next, there's no shame in asking for help. If you're not equipped or qualified to take on a task, find somebody else. And that's all. Anything else? Questions? Nope. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody want to throw anything at Larry before door prizes? I'm just kidding. Seriously, it is easier to deal with somebody like those that know, and you guys will attest, it's so much easier to deal with somebody that knows what they're doing than not. So when you get these folks, just be strong, but be nice. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.